Welcome, everyone, to Season 6, Episode 11 of the Hall of Fame show. It's not as frequent, but it's still the longest line here in the park. Woo!
And I am L. Evan. Sorry. My jersey number's always been 11. So anyway.
Love it. Well, along with L. Evan, that is right. You did tell me you really like Latin music a lot, so that does make more sense. L. Evan. See what I did there?
Yep, there we go.
I'm Kirk Buchner, and we run this joint. Big news from the United States Athletic Hall of Fame. And if you've watched anything that we've ever done, you know that what we're talking about. Right after this, or maybe pause what you're doing right now, pause this, and go to www.theUSAHOF.com, and you can be a part of history. You can help us decide who's going to be part of the third ever United States Athletics Hall of Fame class. It's for the people, by the people. There's a committee to help us decide who gets on the ballot, but that's it. Once it goes beyond that, it's all up to you. Believe me, if I had my way, there'd be a certain female hockey player who'd be in already. And I don't. I can't even get her on the ballot. So much for that. But speaking of that, we could have some bigger things coming based on a few things that have transpired last week. But we'll talk about more in detail should that transpire. Our big Hall of Fame news, though, is the Hockey Hall of Fame. And while I question a lot of things and how they operate, more often than not, they get it right. And why I sort of say how they operate, for those who aren't aware, it's an 18-person committee. They get together, and then they decide it that day. How? Don't know.
Yeah. I'm hoping they have some sort of conversations going into this ahead of time, because otherwise I have absolutely no idea how you get all this done.
Well, from what I understand, and again, that's probably very loose because I wonder if they really follow that at all. Each person's supposed to sort of like nominate somebody in all the categories. And you can also write in a candidate if you're a member of the public, and then they're going to give all that. So I guess it's sort of like a back way to sort of like make sure that there's some quality people. Because if you've only got 18 people voting for something, there's a good chance it's all going to overlap. And maybe there's some other good people that really should be in that discussion. Well, we don't even know how long that discussion goes.
We do not.
We don't. It's chaired by Ron Francis. I was about to say Russ Francis, but no, he played tight end.
I mean, I'm all in favor for Russ Francis being involved in more Hall of Fame discussions. But Patriots Hall of Fame is about as far as he's probably ever going to get.
There you go. But that how they sort of come up with all of this, not sure. I did take a look at all the people who were on it, and Chris Meridian and I did our preview or our prediction show. I did pretty good.
Okay.
Only one I got wrong in terms of, because I didn't go for the builders, because the builders usually come out of nowhere.
Well, I'm very excited about one of the builders. We'll get there, but
yeah, I figured you would be, but more often than not, we don't really see them coming unless it's a high profile coach. And even then, like when they had a big high profile coach, they waited till he was dead.
Correct.
So like they're not. That's usually where their strength or lack thereof shows. Yeah, I did very well. And the one person I didn't pick was one person I wanted them to have more than anything. I just didn't think they would. I thought they were going to make him wait till year 2. So let's get into the men who they chose. And this is one person I didn't predict. Not that I didn't want. This is actually my number one defenseman, and someone you know very, very well, who brought you a Stanley Cup, held it higher than anyone else ever could.
That's correct.
The big Z man, standing at 6'10", 7'1" in skates, Zdeno Chára.
Yeah, I mean, Chara's going to have his number retired, I'd imagine sometime this season. I haven't seen it yet, by the Bruins. We're going to have back-to-back with Chára and Bergeron. I expect Bergeron will be inducted on his first opportunity coming up here. So we're 33 or 37 for the Bruins again. When we got Chára originally, it was like, oh, this is kind of nice, big defender, see how that would help. But he was really one of the main architects behind the big bad Bruins thing. The Bruins have more points this century than any other team in the NHL. And Chára was a major part of them. Unfortunately, we only have the one championship. We've been to, three finals and got one championship. The one against the Blues still stings. But Chara, absolutely 100% deserving. One of the, I mean, I have more to say. What would you say before I really wax poetic about him?
Well, Chara, because I was watching a lot of Senators games back then. So
Hmm.
when he left, I thought that was sort of like the final nail in that brief window that Ottawa had to be really
Hmm.
good. Alfredson was the star on offense. Chara was the big man on defense, and
Hmm.
his best was yet to come. I didn't know that he was going to take it to another level, but I saw Chara live quite a bit in Ottawa, and
Hmm.
he was something special at that point. Uh, I think it's also he had the one Norris, but he was in the conversation a few other
Yeah.
times.
It's
Uh,
crazy he only has one Norris when you look back at it.
yeah,
Uh, because you would have thought he would have had more than he did, but he just had the one Norris in 08, 09 with the Bruins. Um,
and
in
then
many ways, that was one. The Norris is they almost need. Hockey's got more awards than pretty much anybody, but I feel like they need one more award. I think the Norris should be more for the actual best defensive defenseman because very much too often it's become a who what defender has the most points.
Eric
Even
Carlson.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's like calling Travis Kelce a tight end when he's really a wide receiver on the end of the line. Uh,
yeah, you've mentioned that before, and you can maybe call it the Rod Langway Trophy.
sure. Or the Paul Coffey Trophy. Like I don't.
Well, for the on the opposite side.
Well, I'm sorry. No, I'm no the no no no. This stays the Norris. The Norris is it should be the defensive. I feel like the offensive one should go to name it. I mean or was both ways, but
Right.
and I'm trying to think of somebody who is specifically offensive. Paul Coffey is always the first one comes to mind for me.
Hmm.
Although Coffey was a decent defender, he was much more an offensive player. But I've just always felt like it's now become much more a hey, Eric Carlson's got 100 points. Great. He's a negative 17 on the year. Um, so, but Chara's was a defensive point. He only had 50 points this year, which is pretty good for a defender, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, but he was drafted second round by the Islanders in 96, traded to the Senators, and then traded to the Bruins, and then played for the Bruins from the 06-07 season through 2019-2020. He was also one of the last people from the 90s who are still playing in the NHL. Actually, we have two, actually, the last two, I believe, are both in this class, and both at one point played for the Bruins. Um, but yeah, absolutely had the hardest slap shot on record at the NHL All Stars competition of 108.8 miles an hour, which is absolutely crazy. Seven playoff appearances. He also has the most games, seven playoff appearances in NHL history, and played the most games of any defender in NHL history. So,
I think also too when we talked about awards, whatnot. Uh, I've gone on record saying this. I think you agreed with me when I did say this. That my favorite new award in the last 20 years
mhm,
is the Mark Messier Leadership Trophy, which he won in 2011.
that is true.
And I think you're going to see a very high percentage of those winners enter the halls in Toronto. I truly believe that. I'm also very excited that they announced, I think starting this year, that there's going to be an offensive lineman of the year.
An offensive
Lineman.
lineman of the year
Yeah, in football, in the NFL.
or the NFL. I was like, wait, I was confused first.
Yeah,
So,
no,
yeah.
I'm just like when I said that about the Mark Messier, I'm talking about like a wider scope of all the big four sports. Sorry, I should have been more specific with that. But the
Mhm,
only reason I didn't pick Chara, I was looking at who's on this committee. There
mhm,
was there was no one from the Czech Republic or Slovakia, and there are
mhm,
some international people who are on this. Yari Curry from Finland, uh,
mhm.
Igor Lurianov, which is why I predicted somebody else we're going to be talking about, which I believe is the first time there's ever been a Russian on this committee. But we'll sort of we'll get there.
So sorry, just one last thing. Also, a all they all have the all-time decade teams uh, for NHL, which I kind of stole from the NFL. It came a little bit late, but Char was second team in both 2000s and the 2010s. So 2000s, he was beaten out by Nick Lidstrom and Scott Niedermayer, and shared the thing with Chris Pronger, That's a top four defensive group that is pretty impressive, honestly. And
Mhm.
then this time he shared second team with Erik Karlsson, we mentioned before, but held up behind Drew Doughty. And you ready for a transition? Duncan Keith.
Yeah.
So there we go. So why don't we move on to him?
Yeah. Duncan Keith. That's another reason why I didn't pick Chara. Chara is not on the 100th anniversary team. Duncan Keith is.
Crazy to me.
So, well,
I
Chris,
mean, not that Duncan Keith is there, but that Char wasn't. That's all.
no, absolutely. I think we're both huge fans of Zdeno Chára, and as we should be. And Chicago knew what a special player they had in Duncan Keith. I mean, Winnipeg may not have won the Stanley Cup, but hey, we got a Winnipeg boy in here. Actually, there's
Mhm.
a Winnipeg in this whole class. Chicago Blackhawks, he was the anchor for three of those titles: 2010, 2012, 2013, 2015.
Mhm.
Two Norris wins: 2010, 2014, and then the Conn Smythe. And not a lot of defensemen win the Conn Smythe. He did, and he was also played a big part internationally for Team Canada in
Mhm.
many of those tournaments. Absolutely worthy. I That was actually my second biggest lock
Mm.
behind another former Bruin.
Yeah, we'll get to him in a
Yeah.
second. But yeah, two-time gold medalist with Team Canada. Strangely, only a four-time All-Star, which is crazy to me.
Well, but I think with the All Stars though, I always sort of get befuddled myself. Then I forget. A lot of times they don't actually have All Stars. Like there was no All Star this year,
That's true.
so they'll mess some of those things up. So you'd look at like Connor McDavid, for example. How is he not an All Star every year? Well, he can't be an All Star if there isn't one.
That is
Yeah,
fair. Yeah, I mean, Char was only six times. Now I look at it, so
yeah.
crazy. But no, Duncan Keith. It's very hard to make there. I mean, there's almost no dings on his resume you could possibly come up with. You'd have to be really searching for
Mm-hmm.
something. 1,200 career games, 646 points, 91 in playoffs, 151 games, three-time champion, including against the 2013 one against Chara and the Bruins. Um, yeah, just all around incredible player. Um, and finished his career with the Oilers, which was always weird seeing that season. But yeah, Duncan Keith, absolutely a worthy first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, absolutely. Do we want to go with well, let's go, we'll just do this alphabetically. Long time coming for this man. Since I started the site, the first thing I did was rock. The second thing was hockey, and he was on this. He's been on the
Mm-hmm.
top 10. I'm so happy I could take him off
Mm-hmm.
at this point. For Mother Russia, Alexander Mogilny has finally got the call.
Yeah.
I thought with Loriana on the committee, this could be what finally puts him over.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know for sure if that's what happened, but that's probably what happened.
Yeah.
Mogilny is one of those players too, and I think a lot of people will point at that 76 goal season that he had for the Sabres, and which is great. I don't care what era it is. You get 76 goals in a season.
Mm-hmm.
It's phenomenal. Injuries sort of he never piled on him, and he never came close to that again. But his importance in really breaking the barrier and defecting from the Soviet Union,
Mm-hmm.
leading to a floodgate that made the NHL so much better.
Mm-hmm.
That level of impact can't be understated.
Yeah. Also, in the history of hockey, there are 30 members of the Triple Gold Club, meaning someone who's won a Stanley Cup, won a World Championship, and won an Olympic gold medal. Um, the only one of those who's going up this year, he's been on this list forever, is Mogilny.
Mm-hmm.
Mogilny won the Stanley Cup in 2000 with the New Jersey Devils, World Championship in 89, and the Olympic gold in 88 in Seoul with the USSR team. Pretty much everyone else who's eligible for this has gotten in fairly easily. There are a few exceptions. I don't know when Yuri Schlegger is getting in, but
Which is you just got lucky you got mentioned on this show.
yeah, you're looking at the list. You're like, yeah, 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 yeah. It goes. I'm sorry. It goes
Yeah.
McGillney, Rob Blake, Joe Sack, Brendan Shanahan, Scott Niedermeyer, Yarmir Yager, Yuri Schlegel, Nicholas Lidstrom.
Yeah,
Just keep going. Chris Pronger.
He's the Brady Anderson of the 50 home run club.
Yeah, there are a few of them on here, but yeah, that's the one that always gets me for all of them. But Schlegel was on that team that won in '05 with the Czech Republic. Um, but yeah, I mean, Mogilny was. I first really started. Probably my favorite video game in my teen years was NHL 95. I played a lot of NHL, like a ton of NHL 95 on my keyboard, with the moves and everything. And Mogilny was just about unstuck. He was the Bo Jackson of that game.
Yeah.
It's amazing it took him this long to get in. It's like one of those top candidates we've had year after year after year. Like you said, Larionov, who's also one of those 30 people, by the way, who has 3 Stanley Cups, 2 gold medals, and 4 world championships. But Larionov being there, I'm sure, was an aid in getting him up and over, and thankfully so, because Mogilny. I don't think there's any point in my life I haven't thought who have been paying attention to hockey, that I haven't thought Alexander Mogilny was a Hall of Famer. Like there just hasn't been a time. He scored 76 goals in a year, which which led the league back in what year was that?
92, 93, I believe.
92, 93. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if it was just because of the Red Army team history or what it was, but absolutely.
I think the last couple years, the Russia-Ukraine situation didn't do him any favors.
That's also true, but he should have been in well before the Russia-Ukraine situation.
I know. I absolutely.
I mean, he last played 19 years ago.
I think also too, though, with Mogilny is because injuries compiled so much that one year, if you're just looking on the back of a hockey card, that feels like a statistical anomaly or a flash in the pan.
Yeah.
It really wasn't the case. And I think the fact that he contributed on a Devils team that was all about defense, there's something about that. He was still very valuable for a long period of time. And Mogilny is the one I'm happiest for. Or Mogilny and Chára, actually, maybe equal.
Yeah, but congratulations on Mogilny getting in.
Yeah. Well, it brings us to another former Bruin.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you were personally responsible, but you guys wanted him out at one point.
Yeah, that was one of the dumbest things. That trade. So Jumbo Joe Thornton was the #1 draft pick the year I graduated high school. I thought that he and I were born the same year. I thought that he and I were going to be in Boston together, basically, for the rest of his career. Like he was going to be the man.
When you both left Boston, both of you were turncoats.
Yeah, well, I mean, I left Boston after he did, though.
Okay.
So he left in '05, and I was there till '07. So, but Thornton, and then I went back. But anyway, regardless, Thornton, absolute beast of a man. One of the biggest. They call him Jumbo Joe for a reason. One of the most respected guys when he was both in Boston and in San Jose. Matter of fact, actually, one of the guys he's traded for just became the Bruins' new coach. Marco Sturm, was in that trade for him. I'm trying to remember exactly what the trade was. I just remember Sturm was the only really good one. I think it was Thornton, the other Thornton, Sean Thornton. Try to remember exactly what that trade was, but anyway, it doesn't matter.
Well, it's one of those things, right? You just once you're out of favor, regardless of how it happens, and then you wind up in this weird fishbowl. And that's sort of what happened to Thornton, that he just had to get out. The Boston wanted him out.
Yeah, I mean, that was weird. So it was Marco Sturm, I'm sorry, Wayne Primo and Brad Stewart was who the Bruins got back for Joe Thornton.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, has this ever happened? I mean, it's happened the year after, but in hockey, I know that Thornton's the only person to win the Art Ross and the Hart Trophy in a year he was traded.
Right.
That's never happened to anyone else before or since.
Because he was traded very, very early. He was traded like in November, way before the trade deadline back in 2000.
Just went on fire. Sharks, San Jose never did win the Stanley Cup, but they came close. People forget how good that team was, and a lot of that was because of Joe Thornton. 1,500 point club. I mean, once you're in that category, you're getting in first ballot. I think he's what, seventh or right now in assists still?
I will check that for you.
Seventh. Actually, he is, yeah. So with 1,109, and just an absolute beast for Team Canada on that 2010 Olympic team. Incredible performance that he had. Thornton was my lock ahead of Duncan Keith, and I don't think anyone thought
No,
that there was any chance at all that he wasn't getting in this year unless somebody signed him, because it took him a while to retire. He was hanging on. He was hoping for one final run somewhere.
It got to the point where that playoff beard he grew one year just never went away. He had it like
Yep.
his career. So he is seventh in assists behind Paul Coffey and ahead of another great Bruins center, Adam Oates. But put it this way, Sidney Crosby's still, behind Thornton an all time. Think how good Crosby is. Gretzky is 901 assists ahead of Crosby, who's in 10th. That's ridiculous. I know he got passed on goals. No one is ever passing him on assists.
No. I mean, Gretzky was that weird unicorn. I think he legitimately liked passing the puck more than scoring.
Mm-hmm.
I really think he did.
Yeah.
Never passed up an opportunity at the bar, though, did you, Wayne?
So
Sorry.
He is 14th all time in points. Right behind Ray Bork and ahead of Mark Recchi. Average 0.9 points a game, which is a point a game. We're close to it. It's pretty good. So 6 all time in games played in NHL history. Behind Ron Francis, right? He played more than Chara. I think Alon Chara was around. By the way, you know who the all-time regular season leader in games played is for the NHL history?
In NHL history, I believe it's Patrick Marleau, is it not?
It is. It's former teammate Patrick Marleau, past Gordie Howe. Marleau, Howe, Messier, Yager, Francis, Thornton, Char, Recchi, Chelios, and Andrechuk. Pretty much all of them at one point played for the Bruins. Anyway, but yeah, no, just an incredible hockey player. It's sad he never won a championship. He deserved to win a championship. And still one of the weirder trades of Bruins history. What I remember too, when the Bruins did win that 2011 championship, Michael Connell, who was the general manager at the time, the general manager for a long time, he was the general manager who traded Thornton, said that he still would have made the trade all those years later, and that it was gratifying that the Bruins won the championship before Thornton ever did. And I thought, like, in the midst of all of the celebrations,
remember that? Yeah.
I was like, why are we talking about this? Like, why is Thornton catching strays for something that happened 6 years after he left? It was just, and like Wayne Primo, Marco Sturm, and Brad Stewart had nothing to do with the 2011 championship. So it's not like we got, I don't know, Patrice Bergeron because we traded Thornton. It was just very, very odd. But yeah, no, absolutely agree that he's first ballot and deserved to be. There's no question. His resume is as good as anybody's.
Well, so they elected 2 women in the player category. One a little bit overdue. I thought she was going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. She wasn't. I believe that's third that she finally got in, and that is Jennifer Botterill. Another sort of connection to you in your area, because she played
Avid.
What? Avid. Okay, thank you. I was so disappointed when I went to Boston finally, and I didn't hear anyone talk like that. But in Providence, holy shit!
Oh yeah, Providence is one of the worst Boston accents you can ever have. The Family Guy accent is 100% accurate.
Yeah, but when it was in North Dakota, I mean, like, no, they're not talking like Fargo at all. What the hell? Anyway, 4-time All-American, 4-time All ECAC selection, represented Canada so many times, and just won. Another Winnipeg person too.
Three golds and a silver in the Olympics,
and 6 worlds.
And 6 worlds plus 5 worlds plus 3 silvers.
Oh, it's not 6? Oh, I got
that. Finland, Canada, US, Canada, and then so 99, 2000, 01, 04, 07, and silvers 05, 08, and 09. Sorry, she was in 8 and she only finished second or better every single time. What's wrong with her? Yeah,
But yeah,
this is one you've been talking about for years when we do this. That you couldn't believe, particularly last year. I'm trying to remember who it was last year got in over her. You're like, how is this? No offense, this person deserves to be in, but how is it ahead of Jennifer Botterill?
she had the best resume every year of all the women. So I don't know why. I don't know what I might be missing. I know that at one point they sort of inducted, and I forgot her name, the lady from either Sweden or Finland. And yeah, she was racking up goals like crazy, but you're doing that against Finland or Sweden. I mean, it's not the same.
Yeah, last year it was Chrissy Wendell and Natalie Darwitz, both of whom worthy people, but not as good as Jennifer Botterill.
Right. I kind of predicted, so we knew that. Well, we didn't know. I mean, I still predicted her, so I got that one, and I felt that there was going to be an American to join her, and there was.
Yep.
And Brianna Decker,
Yep.
Another phenomenal candidate. Played at Wisconsin and for Team USA, only one Olympic gold and 6 worlds. It's just because for whatever reason, although I think the US women's team has been better for a long time, which is when it comes to the Olympics, Canada just seems to do better.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. So congratulations to the 6 players. We've got 2 builders, and one I spoke with our good friend Ron Katz. And here's something you didn't know about Ron. He likes hockey more than football, believe it or not.
Really?
Really? When he told me that, it's like, really? Follow Ron. Ron's a great guy, big Denver Broncos fan. If it wasn't for him, I think honestly, if it wasn't for him, I don't know if Randy Gradishar would be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I truly believe that. But so we were talking, or we were texting back and forth about someone he was very big on. That might be the one he's biggest on because he's also the big guy in college hockey. Mm-hmm. So he was at the Frozen Four recently. Big fan at University of Denver. Mm-hmm. And so when he met up with me here to watch a game, we weren't talking so much NHL. I was picking his brain on college hockey more than anything else. So he said this one is long overdue. When you look at the resume, with
it's not even close to long overdue. It's ridiculously overdue.
Yeah. I'll defer to you.
Yeah. So Jack Parker, Jack Parker, the longtime coach of the Boston University Terriers hockey team. He was their head coach for 40 years, 47th overall, because he spent some years at Boston University, also coached in Medford High School, which is a town right next to me, birth home of Keith Tkachuk and Tony Amonte. And from Somerville, Massachusetts, or we call it in the Boston area Slummerville. Oh, that's much nicer than it used to be. But 3-time national champion, 78, 95, and 09. So he won in 3 separate decades. 6-time Hockey East tournament champion, 8-time Hockey East regular season champion, 3-time Spencer Penrose Award, which is the top coach of Division I hockey, 5-time Bob Cullen Coach Award, which is Hockey East, member of the Boston University. He was elected Boston University Athletic Hall of Fame while still coaching there. Also won the Hobie Baker Legend of College Hockey Award back in 2014, and a member of the Beanpot Hall of Fame, which is, for those who don't know, one of the coolest events every single year. Takes place at Boston. The 4 major teams there, Harvard, BU, BC, and Northeastern, play a tournament, just semifinals championship. Every year it takes place in February. It's on one Monday, and then there's a week off, and it's the next Monday. But the Beanpot is one of the best events in Boston every single year. It brings out, Boston does not have a lot of athletic pride when it comes to colleges. We are a professional sports town in Boston. We got a lot of colleges, but they're there for education largely, and not necessarily for sports, as you can see by BC's performance in pretty much every sport since Matt Ryan left. But the college hockey, the Beanpot, is something that every single year is a big deal. It used to be BU, BC, and then Harvard got good for a while, and Northeastern was terrible, and then all of a sudden Northeastern got good, and it was weird. But the BU, BC battles and the Beanpot So as many beats I can put in that sentence, I think is possible. Uh, is something you look forward to every single year, and those BU teams dominated. By the way, he also has the most wins in NHL history at one school with 897 wins.
I was looking at that record, right? So 897 against 472 losses and 115 ties. That's sick.
Yeah, that's a crazy record. He
Yeah.
also has the most losses at one school in Division One. There are more in other divisions. There's more, but
Yeah.
472. But I mean, it's kind of Cy Young. You know what I mean?
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
you're one
I like
place for
that.
40 years.
And I think with Parker, as we can both agree, I think anyone looking at this resume can agree that how was he not in before? And I think this goes back to how this whole committee works. If
Yeah.
each one is only nominating like a builder and you're still don't have that many Americans on this, and a lot of these players who are on this committee didn't play in college hockey.
Hmm.
Why would someone like Jack Parker necessarily be on their radar? They're looking more bluntly professionally, and then maybe in Canada junior.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing is like Jerry York, who is the coach at BC forever, who has 5 national championships, got in back in 2019. And York and Parker are Dean Smith and Mike and Coach K. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like the old time with Parker being Smith, the old school, been there forever guy, steady Eddie all the time. And then York being Mort Krzyzewski, also a long time, but like real high highs in the middle there with he had 5 NCAA titles. But Parker still has, I mean, going back, Parker has the most Frozen Four appearances, the most NCAA tournament appearances, the most wins, the most consecutive Hockey East regular season titles, where he was up against York at the time. Like most ECAC tournament titles, like there's just almost nothing in college hockey that he has not done as a coach. And the fact that he's in, and this is more than I even talked about than I talked about Thornton, which is kind of weird. But Jack Parker, absolutely. He's born 1945. He turns 80 this year. I already turned 80. Absolutely deserves to be in, and I'm great. It's great seeing him here.
Yeah.
So,
Well, hopefully he makes it unlike another Parker that we'll be talking about later.
hmm.
Yeah.
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 And last one,
Yeah.
the other Builder, the first woman ever elected in the builders category.
Yeah. And this is also then I feel like I'm taking a shot at her. And
Hmm.
that's Danielle Sauvageau. As you said, the first female builder into the hall, and she's a long line of firsts. She took over Canada, the Canadian program, and brought them to their first Olympic gold in 2002. She was a coach in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. That was a first. She is currently now a GM of Montreal of the PWHL, and her career is very impressive. But then, is that one of those things where you get nominated and it's just like, do we want to like look good? I don't know, because I mean, like, if I compare her to Jack Parker, are we really saying that they both deserve to get in at the same year?
Um,
You know, and I hate thinking like that, but after sort of like seeing more about how they're more operating in this capacity and just how hard it is to even get in that room.
mhm.
Well, okay, now you're telling a great story with her, and I don't know that I necessarily have a problem with her getting in. I just wonder how many people should have got in before her.
Yeah, I don't know enough about her or what she's done. I know she has a whole bunch of awards that are things that are from Canada, but it seem British, like the Order of Canada and the Meritorious Service Cross and
Oh,
QE2 Golden Jubilee and Diamond Jubilee medals. Like I don't know what
Order of
those.
Canada, that's her Presidential Medal of Freedom,
Ah,
essentially.
okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she's a member
Although,
of the Canadian Olympic Hall of Fame.
yeah, we kicked
So,
somebody out of that actually recently.
oh, did you?
Buffy Saint Marie,
Really?
Pretendian.
Interesting.
Yeah. But
But
yeah, so no, I mean, congratulations to I feel like I kind of took away, but uh again, when I was talking back and forth with Ron, I mean, like, he's really big on here's a name I want your take on. Stan Fischler, the hockey journalist.
yeah, I don't have much on. I don't.
Okay.
That's not a name that means anything to me off the top of my head. So
Okay,
I,
yeah, just so, like a big deal just in terms of hockey journalism, and then I've always been big on Don Cherry, but I can see why they're not going to give him a live.
Yeah, Cherry's one of those ones you put in posthumously, unfortunately. They just don't want him making a speech.
No, he just officially retired, so he's not even doing anything now at 94. But either way, congratulations to the 2025 Hockey Hall of Fame class. On the Not in Hall of Fame site, I will be removing those who just got in probably in a couple weeks, and then I'll slowly alter that. I've got to do the same thing for I'm basketball, rock,
Yeah.
every
What
other
are you
thing.
doing with yourself anyway? It's not like you have anything to do.
I
So,
it's amazing. I got so much on my plate. I don't know where the plate is.
yeah. Just by the way, the three there so people who are on the outside still looking in. I'm glad Mogilny's over the line. I was a little surprised that Carey Price didn't get in. This time around, if you're gonna do a goalie, it feels like he's still technically under contract with the Canadians, so maybe he's not there, but he hasn't played since 02 or since 22.
Well, according to the Hall, he's definitely qualified. So
Yeah, so I'm a little surprised, but maybe his contract status makes it possible he could come back. The previously mentioned Keith Tkachuk.
that was my other prediction I got wrong.
Yeah, and someone else, just not only for his playing career, but for what he's meant to hockey overall. I'm a little surprised that Rod Brind'Amour has not gotten across the line, just because not only is he a great player, but he's been a heck of an executive as well in his time in the NHL. I kind of feel that, like, as a player, I mean, he's not anymore borderline because, like, pretty much he's what, third most in points for someone who's not in the Hall at this point. When he retired is a little bit further down, but we're at that point where he's right there. But honestly, he's built multiple Stanley Cup winners. What's the man need to do to get in? Those are the three ones for me, at least on the men's side.
Yeah.
On the outside, looking at that a little bit interesting. I've heard the arguments for Ryan Getzlaf. I've heard Patrick Elias. I've heard a few others. Those guys don't move the needle as much for me. I kind of feel like the three that I mentioned, really Tkachuk more than the two, but Tkachuk, Brind'Amour, and Price would be the three who I'm a little bit surprised.
And Kachuk's profile's never been bigger.
Oh yeah, I mean, will he get in? Will he get in before his son?
Oh, you can even say which one. Brady's a hell of a player.
Yeah, that's true.
You got to figure that no jersey sales have gone up in hockey more than the last name Tkachuk.
Yeah, probably true. All right, do you have anything else we need to talk about in terms of calls?
Let's tell one quick story here. So last night I went to the Wu-Tang Clan concert.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And apparently they really do believe that cash revolves everything around me. It was great. It was a lot of fun. My wife and I, we've been going to a lot of concerts now that we're living in a city again that has a lot of that. We did a lot of Winnipeg, but Seattle, again, it's just a bigger city for that. It's nice to actually see someone who's a group that's not lip syncing for a change.
I get it.
Yeah. But they had, I don't want to say different sets, but they had like 1 minute blocks where I guess they're just sort of like getting everything ready.
Okay.
It was a commercial, one for one of their movies.
Okay.
RZA directed, one for a video game, and then for a documentary. And I'm thinking there's Gene Simmons going, God damn it, why did I think of that? Now we're done. So I just wanted to bring it was a lot of fun, but my God, were they in full capitalist mode here on that one.
Hey, good for them. Someone's got to be in full capitalist mode, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I also, while they were sort of part of there was a set where he was talking about the homeless plight. But anyway, it was just a little
odd.
I thought it was a little off, but whatever. I had a great time.
I'm glad.
And Killer Mike, who was part of the opener with Run with the Jewels.
Yeah.
Killer Mike was always a big guy. Killer Mike looks like he ate Killer Mike.
Fair enough.
I'll leave it at that.
Wow. All right. So I guess the only thing we have really left here is the status part. Some folks passed away. Had a couple. We've been a little bit since we did this. Yep. So there are a couple of pretty big names here. a lot of other people I'm going to skip through, but just a few, trying to keep it to not that many. Let's start in baseball, and then we'll get into the big one in music that we could talk about. But let's start with Ron Taylor, member of the World Series champion 64 and 69 St. Louis Cardinals. I'm sorry, 64 Cardinals, 69 New York Mets, the amazing Mets. Member of the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame. Um, Also played for the Indians, Astros, and Padres during his career. He passed away at the age of 87. Man, those guys, even from the 60s, are getting old at this point.
Mhm. Yeah.
Uh, also passed away, Diego Segui, played for the uh, Kansas City and Oakland Athletics, the Senators, Seattle Pilots, Cardinals, Red Sox, and Mariners, among the others. Great forkball. If you Segui, he led the AL and ERA in 1970, while with Oakland. A member of the Venezuelan Baseball Hall of Fame, a member of that Red Sox team that lost the crazy World Series to the Reds in 75. Um, Born in Cuba, but uh, yeah, he was traded by St. Louis along with Reggie Cleveland, the founding member of the Reggie Cleveland group, um, which is for white guys who sound like they're not, who have names that make them sound like they're not white guys. But yeah, they a very, very good pitcher. Um, One of the few players who, I think the only player who played for both the Seattle Pilots and the Seattle Mariners, if I'm not
Hmm.
mistaken. He was called the Ancient Mariner when he showed up in 1977 for their inaugural season. Uh, but yeah, passed away at the age of 87. Do you have any Diego Segui's?
No, just remember a ball card that I
Yeah,
have.
is also the father, of course, of David Segui,
David Segui, yeah.
who played for years in baseball. Also passed away in baseball, Ed Mickelson passed away at the age of 98. Now, Ed Mickelson hit 081 with 0 home runs and 3 RBIs in his career. But why am I bringing Ed Mickelson up? He's
I
the
don't.
last man who ever run batted in for the St. Louis Browns.
Oh my God.
So he drove in the last run in September 27th, 1953.
Yeah, okay, because they moved in 54. Holy crap.
Yeah, so 1953 to now is 72 year or 71 and a half years ago. But Ed Mickelson passed away at the age of 98. So with his death, Billy Hunter is now the last living person to ever play for the St. Louis Browns. He is 97 years old. Much better hitter. He was a 219 hitter in his career, but a member of the Orioles Hall of Fame, three-time World Series champion, and an all-star in 53 with the St. Louis Browns before they moved to Baltimore.
Hmm.
Also at one point manager of the Texas Rangers. But he is now Billy Hunter, now the last living St. Louis Brown. So, and then let's talk the big one from baseball before we get to everything else. Dave Parker, unfortunately, passed away yesterday at
Yeah.
the age of 74. Um, Parker was the Cobra right fielder from 73 to 91 with the Pirates, Reds, A's, Brewers, Angels, and Blue Jays. I think of him mostly with the Pirates and the A's. I know there's a little thing with the Reds there in the middle, but he's seven-time All-Star, two-time World Series champion. He was on both the 79 Pirates. Yes, I am old enough that the Pirates won the World Series during my lifetime, and the 89 and the 89 Athletics, NL MVP in 78, three-time Gold Glover, three-time Silver Slugger, two-time NL batting champion, NL RBI leader in 85. Remember the Reds and Pirates Halls of Fame. He's actually the Pirates, one of the Halls of Fame we really enjoyed. We think they're doing a great job.
Phenomenal.
They just started it super duper late. Parker was in their inaugural class
Yeah.
when they came up with that. What is it, 5 years ago ish at this point,
About
probably.
that. About that, yeah.
But one of those people was always just on the outside looking in. Honestly, drugs messed with his career
Yeah.
significantly. Those 70s We Are Family Pirates teams were just a mess. Um,
Oh, I've been watching so many documentaries on YouTube about other teams in that era. So they certainly weren't alone in that. Uh,
no,
I totally agree with you. I won't say joked about it, but I always said Parker essentially snorted his way out of the hall, and
yeah,
then he finally got in. I mean, because I believe he finished with I want to say 317 home runs probably could have had at least 400 if
It's
he
339
oh,
actually.
339. Okay. Uh, I knew it was under 350. I don't know why I came up with 317, but don't matter. Probably could have definitely probably would have had over 400. Still
Yeah.
had incredible RBI numbers
Yeah.
despite that. Parker, it also didn't probably help him either that in the second half of his career, his fielding just wasn't there.
Went off a cliff. Absolutely.
Yeah, which sort of affected his overall B WAR. So the sabermetricians didn't like him, whether you agree with that or not. And I'm sort of on the fence. Or not. I like advanced stats, but I got to put them where they are. You know what
I
I
have
mean?
to say, WAR, the more I look at it, the more I'm thinking that WAR is a terrible statistic.
Whoa,
Uh,
huh, go.
what is it good for? Keeping worthy people out of the Baseball Hall of Fame and telling me that people who sucked are actually good.
Say it again. No.
Luis Soho is not a Hall of Famer. Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, Parker was one of those guys though too. I've always said that my first favorite player was Pete Rose, and I gravitated towards Tony Gwynn. But Dave Parker looked like that cool uncle from a '70s sitcom who was just you wanted to be his friend, but you didn't want to piss him off.
Absolutely. Yeah, he was
Yeah,
he was the shopkeeper in Shaft's neighborhood.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, like just some
take
great.
take care if you're in trouble, but do not show up at his place with a
Yeah,
shotgun because they will be over very quickly. So,
we heard that he was sick, and I didn't realize how
and
sick he
Parkinson's
was.
so bad.
Yeah, because when they showed his acceptance, I believe on the Baseball Network,
Mhm.
or not acceptance, but the revelation, and he's
Yeah.
shaking everywhere.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, not just like this. I mean, just go like side to side. It was all over the place. Dave Whitlock, our friend, was because he said he saw him in 2021. He said like he was in pretty bad shape then
Mhm.
because he goes to the Hall of Fame almost every year. Uh, at least he got to know that it happened.
True.
Uh,
Yeah, I mean the induction ceremony is in 4 weeks at this point.
yeah, I think it's July 27th if I've got my dates right. But sadly, it'll be posthumous. It's you know Parker never came close. Well, I shouldn't say they never came close. He was on the ballot for the inaugural 15 years or the initial 15 years. Never finished higher than 30%. Finally gets in on his fourth senior ballot, and honestly, I didn't think he'd ever get in. I
I
think
didn't either.
yeah,
No, but
he's going in with Dick Allen. Like those two should have been there.
like Parker is, I understand the reasons why Parker did get in and the drug use and the whole Curtis Strong drug scandal and everything else. I
Yeah,
get the stain that lives. I still am mad about Dick Allen.
sure, absolutely, me too. That should have happened so long ago. And Dick Allen, I think there was a lot of gatekeepers just because he just wasn't the friendliest guy to media. Yeah,
It's like,
sorry for the glitch, everyone. Yeah, I was just saying, and I'm not sure if Evan, you heard this or not. Dick Allen certainly had the stats, even it was the dead ball era, so people have to
Mhm.
remember that. But Allen was that type of guy. He's not going to give you the warm and fuzzies if you're a writer. That's
Mhm.
not what he was there to do.
Yeah, right. And he had reasons not to. I mean, the stories
Absolutely.
of stuff that he had to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jim Rice was another guy who took him until his last year on the ballot in order to get in because he wasn't warm and fuzzy either.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, going back to Parker, Parker had a game in '79 where he literally knocked the cover off the ball and the hit to right field. Just to give you an idea of how powerful that man was. He and Stargell used to warm up in the batter's circle with a sledgehammer rather than
Oh,
a weight.
really?
Yeah, they'd had a sledgehammer out there swinging the bat in the early '80s. But yeah, Parker was incredible, and then it came off quickly. Back in 1981, uh, Lawrence Ritter and Donald Honig wrote a book called "100 Greatest Baseball Players of All Time," and Parker was one of their 100. Uh, so he went from that in '81 to cocaine taking him out by the time he was in the mid '80s.
Yeah. Then returning as sort of a one-dimensional power hitter.
exactly. But he was on that. He was a very important part of that '89 Oakland A's team
Hmm.
uh, that won the Earthquake series. So
And didn't he also too? He on one of his comeback years, I forget whether it was with Oakland or Cincinnati. He was actually the runner-up for the MVP again.
possible. Hold on.
So like this was like past his Pirates days. I remember looking like I can't remember what year, whether that was one of those good years he had with Cincinnati or with Oakland. I think it might have been with Cincinnati.
He finished second in '85 to Willie McGee, the as we always say, the African American Don Knotts. I see. Uh, yeah, so he finished second to Willie McGee in '85 with the Reds.
I was gonna re-watch a bunch of all the World Series I can find. Now I can't unsee it, especially with that '85 one. And now the Black Mister Limpet.
Oh yeah, I mean, I just
Shit.
absolutely, I've thought that my entire life, and well, I thought that my entire life, and then McGee played that one season for the Red Sox. So, but anyway, back to Dave Parker. Absolute great baseball player. I'm glad he found out he got into the Hall of Fame. I'm sad he's not going to be there to experience it, even in a way like Mongo had last year with the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I think that was also sort of like great for Mongo's friends, teammates, and wife.
yeah, so.
You know.
Godspeed, Dave Parker died of complications of Parkinson's at the age of 74. All right, heading out. By the way, I forgot to say that we do have a victim of the Beige Mistress,
Oh,
Tibor Kinsis, a 65-year-old judoka who won silver, or sorry, won bronze in 1980 Olympic Games in Moscow. He passed away at the age of 65. So you say it's, someone just dying of old age. I say, and you and I say it's a secret serial killer. Uh,
mm-hmm.
People out, some just famous folks outside who haven't talked about passed away. The incredible writer Frederick Forsyth passed away at the age of 86. Did you ever read any of his Day of the Jackal, Fourth Protocol, Dogs of
Some time
War?
ago, the dog-eared like paperbacks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. The king of dog-eared spy novel paperbacks, or one of them, John le Carre,
Mhm.
uh, people like that. But Frederick Forsyth, absolutely one of them. Member of the RAF from 56 to 58, but he passed away at the age of 86. Um, Also passing away, Lynn Hamilton, uh, Georgia Anderson from Roots and Next Generation, but you'd probably know her best as Fred Sanford's fiance from
Oh,
Sanford and Son.
yeah. Right around when that sort of like jumped the shark, but I'd still watch it anyway. 'Cause
Right.
I love Stanford.
Donna Harris.
Mhm.
She passed away at the age of 95. Was also in the Waltons and a whole bunch of other stuff. Lady Sings the Blues. Uh, showed up in Moesha at one point. But yeah, so she passed away she was a 227 as well. She passed away, as I said, at the age of 95. Um, Also, Anne Burrell, the famous chef, dropped dead at the age of 55. She'd been tweeting earlier in the day she passed away. There's some questions as to whether or not this was drug related. They're apparently investigating it.
Mm.
Uh, but she passed away at the age of 55, which is, of all those chefs to pass away young, she was not one of the ones I was going for. I mean, Guy Fieri is somehow still going, and I don't get it. So, um,
Oh, Guy, if you're watching your restaurant, your celebrity restaurant at the Cancun airport really sucks.
fair enough.
Okay.
Um, okay, one of the more interesting characters, Nino Benvenuti, also passed away, professional boxer and actor, held the gold medal of the 1960 Olympics in welterweight, also held the welterweight and light middleweight title for quite a while. He passed away at the age of 87.
Mm.
Um, Also, another important one I want to talk about with Boston ties, Nina Cusick. She passed away at the age of, obviously, that would make her 86. Long distance runner, the first woman to officially win the Boston Marathon, because they had women running the Boston Marathon famously, but she was the first woman to ever actually win it. Second woman to ever complete a marathon in under 3 hours. In 1971, she ran the New York Marathon in
Right.
2:56:04.
So women could run it, but they couldn't like win anything, or they weren't allowed to run it.
They weren't allowed to run it for a long time. I can't remember the lady's name. It'll come to me who ran it, and they tried to pull her off the course. Because the thing was, if women ran that long, the whole, sexism thing, their uteruses were going to fall out. I'm not making that up. Um, so hold on. First woman to run Boston Marathon. Bobby Gibb. So Bobby Gibb ran the marathon unofficially in 66. Then Catherine Switzer ran in 67. Um, she registered uh, under an initial, essentially. So she had first initial, last name, and they didn't check. And then she was on the course. There's all those photos of people trying to rip her off the course because she wasn't there. So women were running it, but the first woman to officially run it under it and legally was Nina Cusick. By the way, that 71 New York City Marathon, as I said, she was the second woman ever run sub 3 hours. The first one was Beth Bonner, who ran the same marathon, finishing about less than a minute ahead of her.
I guess that's why when I was a kid watching the '84 Olympics,
Mm-hmm.
they made such a big deal out of, and I guess I didn't really understand it at the time.
Joan Benoit.
Well, not so much, yeah, her, who we can vote for at www.theUSAHOF.com because she's one of the candidates.
I did the other day.
There you
So
go. You can vote every day, by the way. So it's a little cool thing. But they were making a big deal. So I would have been 12 watching this because that was the first time there was a women's marathon.
correct.
I didn't quite understand at the time why they didn't already have one when they seem to have
Mhm.
everything else.
There were a bunch of ones at 84 Olympics were the first time we had a women's pentathlon. The first time we had a women's marathon. There were like a bunch of ones that you're like, why didn't this happen before? And the answer was generally just pure sexism. So, but no, she won the 72 Boston Marathon, 72 and 73 New York City Marathon, and 73 Yonkers Marathon.
Hmm.
But she passed away at the age of 86. Pretty much everyone else I have is from music. So let's start with, oh no, I have one more. I forgot. I apologize. One of the real characters in sports history, Guido Tenesi, passed away at the age of 71. Um, do you remember? I know you've watched Slapshot quite a bit.
Oh, yes.
Billy Charleboy, the guy who just checks himself in the mirror all the time, real popular with the ladies, doesn't have a
Oh,
storyline.
yeah. Yes, yes.
They had the Chiefs fashion show. They said it was from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. Um, yeah, so Guido Tenesi passed away at the age of 71.
I didn't even
Uh,
know he was Italian.
he's from Michigan. He just has
No, I didn't know he had an Italian background.
yeah, he did play for the Italian national team actually, but he grew up in Michigan. His final years of his career, he played in Serie A in the ice hockey over there, but played mostly for the Hershey Bears. Um, but yeah, so he passed away at the age of 71. So Guido Rocco Tenesi, clearly Italian. Or anyway, for the last word for music, I have five for music here. Junior Biles, the great roots reggae singer, he passed away at the age of 77. From Kingston, Jamaica, one of the big guys for reggae, rock steady, and ska throughout the 70s and 80s. Worked with Lee Scratch Perry, among others. But yeah, he was 77 years old. Also passing away, Bobby Sherman,
Yeah.
passed away at the age of 81. Biggest hit I was probably Little Woman in 1969. Was also left show business to become a paramedic and a deputy sheriff, among other things. Also was involved in lots of TV. He was on, the Mod Squad, Ellery Queen, Murder She Wrote. I remember actually him coming on Murder She Wrote and my mom telling me that he was a big singing star at one point because we watched Murder She Wrote as a family every single week. Um, but yeah, passed away at the age of uh, 81 of stage 4 kidney cancer.
Mm.
And not the way to go. But yeah, Little Woman, La La La, If I Had You, the Jingle Bell Rock, you'll still hear all that. That's probably your Bobby Fuller most, is his version of Jingle Bell Rock around Christmas. Um, Julie, Do You Love Me? Cried Like a Baby, The Drum, Easy Come, Easy Go, a whole bunch of them. But yeah, he passed away at the age of 81. Um, Also passing away, Lou Christie,
Oh,
with one of the great songs ever, Lightning Strikes,
yeah.
from 1966, covered by Aerosmith later.
I don't remember
So,
that.
the Aerosmith one is probably one you're going to hear more often these days.
Hmm.
Um, you'll still hear that on classic rock radio. For some reason, classic rock radio doesn't go into the 60s anymore, except for the Beatles, which is depressing.
Yeah, I want to
Um,
point out though with Aerosmith and Steven Tyler. You remember Waylon Flowers and Madam?
no.
Okay, well, if you look up Waylon Flowers and Madam, they were a ventriloquist act.
Okay.
Madam and Steven Tyler have never been seen in the same building.
Fair enough.
Feel free to sort of like Google what if I didn't age myself with that reference, I don't know what else.
Yeah, I would say.
The only time that Wu-Tang and Waylon Flowers will be named in the same podcast.
Well, I'm about to give you Frankie Avalon, Bobby Rydell, and Fabian, because afterwards, Christie ended up being Bobby Rydell took over, but they had the Golden Boys, which had Frankie Avalon, Fabian, the original Bobby Rydell, and then Christie, who who have been performing. Rydell died back in 2022, and Christie took over for that. He could still apparently sing his high falsetto, which was a big
Oh
deal
wow.
for him well into his 70s. But he had, of course, Teenager in Love, Lightning Strikes, Rhapsody in the Rain is a really good song that's largely forgotten at this point. Since I Don't Have You, I'm going to Make You Mine. Um, Beyond the Blue Horizon, Summer Days. There are a whole bunch of great songs of his. Stay, of course. Um, which I believe is the shortest song ever to be number one in terms of, well, actually, the Maurice Williams Zodiacs version is, but
Mhm.
Stay is the shortest song ever to get to number one. I believe it's only a minute and 36 seconds long. Um,
Well,
and
you didn't need that long to convince her to stay.
I guess not. So, um, but yeah, so Lou Christie passed away at the age of, I had it up here, at the age of 82. Also, you need to talk about Roger Nichols, um, one of the great songwriters out there, wrote a lot of songs for Three Dog Night, including Out in the Country, later covered by REM. Rainy Days and Mondays is a song he wrote. We've Only Just Begun, also by the Carpenters. Also did things for Randy Newman, Herb Alpert's, Tijuana Brass. He wrote songs for them. Um, I have multiple of his albums that I have inherited from my parents of Roger Nichols, so he may be bigger for me than for other
Nice.
folks. But yeah, he very, very important writer for a whole bunch of songs. He passed away at the age of 84. But the biggest name that passed away this whole time, even bigger than Brian Parker since we last spoke, some guy named Brian Wilson passed away at the age of 82.
Yeah. Eh, what can you say? You could put him as like one of the top 10 musical minds, period,
Yeah.
of the rock generation.
I mean, I don't think of the 20th century. I don't think you even need to say rock generation. I think of the 20th century. Brian Williams is in consideration for the Mount Rushmore of musical genius.
The Wall of Sound, Pet Sounds remains one of the most, if not the most acclaimed album of all time. Just a victim of his own mind.
Absolutely.
Uh, the stories of him just being depressed and not being, this happened in his mid 20s.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, maybe it's just because you're hanging around Mike Love the whole time. I don't know. But then even later on in his life, in his 30s and 40s, where he was sort of like sucked in by a guru, like one of these fake like charlatans. And how is somebody this intelligent and this genius? But then sometimes the great geniuses are always the most troubled souls.
Yeah. He,
And yeah, the music that he created, the music that he even could have created more. Think about this. I mean, like he actually robbed himself of so many prime years, and he's still all of this.
I know.
It's insane.
Absolutely. Absolutely crazy. He may also have the longest page on Wikipedia that I have ever seen. It's And like if you're gonna read that whole thing, it's gonna take you 20 minutes to a half hour.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, just stuff with the Beach Boys, um, and then other things that he part that was part of, and like Grammy Awards he won, and just absolutely, I mean, absolutely amazing as to everything from, Little Deuce Coupe. But I think by the time he was 25, he'd written 25 top 40 hits,
Mhm.
which is nuts. You know, like just absolutely crazy. Absolute musical genius. Uh, but yeah, just it's just tough, It's just tough. Being that good at something and then being famous for it is not always easy for anybody. He at least got a whole life out of it. There's so many other, I mean, just all the members of the 27 Club for music, right? Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, Janis Joplin,
That could have been him too easily.
Jimi Hendrix, like Keith Moon. They all passed away at 27, right? And that was about the time when things really started shifting for him as well. Um, so he very well could have been one of those people, but even with everything else, he got to live a life, and gave us some of the. I mean, Pet Sounds itself. Pet Sounds, again, on the Mount Rushmore for greatest albums of all time, and I think that one's more a George Washington, Abraham Lincoln member of Mount Rushmore than a Teddy Roosevelt member of Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure it hasn't changed, but the website does Rolling Stone can still consider that the best album of all time?
I can find out.
Basically, well, if you're looking that up, uh, what they do have, there's an aggregate site that I love called acclaimedmusic.net. I've talked about the site so often because I listen to albums based on their ranking. Pretty
Hmm.
much since I discovered that site, it's always been number one, and that's sort of like an aggregator of all critics.
Hmm.
Even if Rolling Stone doesn't have it at number one, a lot of publications do.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
um so they redid it in 2020. Hold on, this is not what I'm looking for. I mean Pet Sounds is the first thing listed, but I don't actually have the
No, all good. But yeah, it's like that is one of those. If, I don't want to say if you listen to one album of the '60s, but
I
if you're
mean,
doing a Mount Rushmore maybe of albums of the '60s, that's one. It has to be there.
yeah.
It has to
Hold
be.
on, I'm coming down. Finally, I've gotten to where I need to be.
Mhm.
Number one is actually the updated list. Number one is Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On," which is also an album.
Yeah. Mhm.
Pet Sounds is two now.
Okay.
So of all the albums ever made, it's number two. What the Jennifer Botterill's going on here? Uh,
Nice.
Pretty interesting is Joni Mitchell's "Blue." So, and then Stevie Wonder's songs "Key of Life" and "Abbey Road" by the Beatles are your top five. So.
Mm.
Nirvana's Nevermind is six. I'll only go to 10. Rumors by Fleetwood Mac is seven. Purple Rain is eight by Prince. Blood on the Tracks by Bob Dylan is nine. And number 10 is interesting. The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill.
Mm. There's another troubled soul.
Again, yeah.
Mm.
So someone who'd rather have her child die than be taken care of by a person who lacked melanin. So yeah. But anyway, incredible voice of Lauryn Hill. But going back, Brian Wilson, Godspeed, sir. He was 82 years old.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's everything I got.
well, I guess that brings us to a close. So with with that, one more plug for the United States Athletic Hall of Fame, www.theUSAHOF.com. Check that out, vote, and then vote again. Not on the same day. We won't let you do that. We're trying to like keep that somewhat honest, but well, not somewhat honest, completely honest.
Yeah, so we don't want people stuffing the ballot. So you
Yes.
you got like 100 and something opportunities to vote. You got more than enough. You just don't need someone coming up with a program that's going to give them 1,000 and skew the results. So that's what we're trying to avoid.
Democracy just resets every 24 hours, which, depending on your point of view,
If
is better than what we
if
got.
only.
No politics here, man. I,
I feel I feel like that was a safe political statement.
I
So
try. We tried. We tried. So with
uh,
that, as I always close, wherever you are, wherever you may be, make today count because it never comes again. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, guys, and vote.
Vote.